So I put off writing this speech for a while. For a long time, I stressed to find something life-changing or thought-provoking to speak about, but came up short. When taking stock of my life and the notable things that have happened to me, I did a lot of reflecting. And in reflecting on my past 4 years of high school, I kept coming back to my freshman year. My freshman year, like nearly everybody's freshman year, sucked. But beyond the typical awkwardness and usual stumbles, I struggled socially and personally in a lot of ways. And looking back on that year, my mental and emotional health was definitely the worst it has ever been. I was, as most people are, shot out of a cannon my freshman year. As my family headed north on the Taconic State Parkway to move me in, I was absolutely silent, violently nauseous, and even more pale than usual. Upon arriving on campus, I was overwhelmed by the amount of hands I had to shake that day. Though I loved to be social, I dreaded meeting new people and was not as outgoing or extroverted as I am today. I lived on the second floor of Harris Hall, chomp chomp, with one boarding and one day student roommate. The boarder I lived with, who has since left Millbrook, was at least 1.5 feet taller than me and my exact opposite. We did not talk to the same people, and we did not like the same things. He would sleep with the light on and blast music throughout the day. We didn't not get along, but by no means were we friends. I would say we spoke a good 50 words a week, maybe 75 if we were feeling extra chatty. The day student I lived with, who has also since left Millbrook, welcomed himself to my desk to do his work and my bed to store his belongings on the nights he would stay over. Long story short, there was a total lack of privacy in my room that made it difficult for me to catch my breath when I was overwhelmed on campus. And with a near constant need to decompress and have some time to myself, I struggled. I'll just say before I move on that general room incompatibility aside, both of my roommates were and are good and genuine people. Josh Gray and Luke O'Neill, I miss you both. Beyond Harris, I struggled socially to solidify myself into a group of friends. I was ill-prepared for the constant shift in friend groups early on freshman year and shocked that not everyone shared the let's all be friends mentality. Moreover, the vast majority of my friends lived in Clark, and I felt as though I was missing out on valuable time with them each day when they would return home for the night. The FOMO was very real. Nearly every morning I would hear about something funny that happened in the dorm or something not so funny and try desperately to overcompensate for my absence. Though it was no one's fault, I felt second tier. If I'm being honest, this dynamic pushed me towards some pretty unhealthy social behaviors, and I overdid it with my friends nearly every day. On the days when the weather was bad or people were tired, I was left on my own and would envy the fact that I could not join my friends in Clark. Boarding school and dorm life and visitation policies required me to adapt and put a strain on my well-being. In the classroom, things were a little better, though I largely lacked perspective on my problems. I still kind of do. As my freshman year advisor, Mr. Kevin Brown, who has also since left Millbrook, would attest to, I oftentimes made a huge deal out of something that was almost certainly insignificant. The goal he set for me that year was to, in his words, transition from seaweed into a strong oak tree. That's a quote from an advisor letter. In other words, suck it up and learn some resilience. Physics was hard, geometry was hard, Latin was very hard, and when I would receive a difficult assignment or experience a setback academically, I would lament my failure to Mr. Brown and the woes of my ever-declining academic career. Way back then, it was hard for me to see that the math homework check for homework I didn't actually do, sorry, Mr. Sorianto, wouldn't affect me all too much in the end. So, to sum things up, freshman year sucks, and for me it was no exception. Getting through one of my darkest times mentally took a lot of work, and when my room was too busy, or my friends were too busy, or my assignments were not enough to keep me busy, I got to work on myself without even realizing it. While reflecting on my freshman year for this talk, what stood out to me most was not how I felt or why I felt that way, but what I did in response. Freshman year, I walked a lot. Wandered is really a better word. Often with no destination, I would leave my room and just roam around campus when I had a free block or on the weekend or before dinner. There were times where I would literally walk around for hours at a time, no end in sight. On these walks, I would often not listen to music, but rather take in what was around me and enjoy the silence. It was in that silence that I processed what I was feeling and found the time to catch my breath when the stresses of my freshman year weighed too heavily on me. It was also in that silence, ironically enough, that I feel I grew to become as loud of a person as I am today. My journeys would take me across campus from the Horn to the cross-country trail and around the solar field. I would trek up Ski Hill and soak in the view and explore the woods surrounding the pond that used to serve as the hockey rink. I did not let bad weather stop me and would move from building to building in the colder months. While there, I'd read the plaques on the walls and the didactics in the art center. There was one point that year when I would go to schoolhouse and sit in the basement, the old basement, and read sections from Mr. Polling's instant classic, An Early History of Millbrook School. Yes, I have read it cover to cover, and yes, I would recommend. It was through these walks and explorations that I started to pick up on what this place and what this community were. And it was through that understanding that I started to integrate myself and come into my own. Many, many times freshman year, I assumed the role of an observer, and in the least stalkerish way possible, I swear, I slowly began to pick up on what faculty members lived on campus, who lived in what dorm, who played what sport, etc. It was through these walks that I would learn random things like why prom is called prom, and the combination, bit by bit, of these little pieces of information showed me what a community is and what this community is made of. In hindsight, I feel very, very strongly that a stage of discovery such as that one is essential to fully give yourself to a place and to a group. On my walks, I would run into people from all sorts of different places on campus. Early on that year, I would avoid eye contact at all costs. Eventually, I began to wave, and then I moved on to hello, and then even started to ask people how they were doing. Before long, I was making new connections. Of course, actually forming friendships and maintaining those relationships took a little more than bumping into the same person more than a couple of times, but the context and foundation that came out of these run-ins led me to grow closer to all sorts of people. Through walking and taking the time to grapple with my thoughts and muster up some courage, I gained the confidence to put myself out there step by very small step. Slowly, I came out of my shell. Becoming a part of different social groups on campus allowed me the confidence I lacked early on freshman year. When one group was busy or in the dorm or tired, I had other friends I could go to. One friend led to another new friend, led to another, and I still appreciate that today, at least in my opinion, I'm a part of many different social groups on campus. Though freshman year was rough socially, especially early on, that strain actually helped push me to become the extroverted and socially active person I am today. Even further, these walks exposed me to countless opportunities on campus. I would see and actually read posters for something or overhear some details of some cool opportunity and jump on the chance to involve myself. In a very real way, my constant meanderings around campus, in conjunction with some luck, led me to what I love. I thrive on movement. And I like to think that my long, aimless walks have gradually been replaced by activities and relationships and connections around campus. Though I do not want to overinflate the role walking had on shaping my identity, I would be remiss if I didn't credit it for leading me, at least somewhat, to where I am today. To end, I'll share a brief, seemingly unrelated story that I think serves this talk well. My dad, like most dads, seems to know almost everything about almost everything. In addition to this, when I was younger, he seemed to have been everywhere on earth. I later found out this was not true. His work brought him across the country and around the world, and his apparent genius in the context of his global mystique led my naive brain to the only natural conclusion. I thought my dad was a spy. Duh. I would often press him on this, asking partly in jest but mostly in earnest whether or not he was a spy, and he would answer no, which only confirmed my suspicions because obviously a real spy would deny being a spy. One day, though, on the way back from the grocery store or a haircut or something, he slipped. I noticed we had traveled a different way home than the way we had come. When I asked why this was, he said it was to keep his adversaries off his trail. A good spy, you see, has to be spontaneous, unpredictable. I feel the lesson hidden in that story to take a new path every day is an important one. Whether your journeys on foot last a few minutes or a few hours like mine did, I urge you to switch things up and try something new. Be spontaneous and unpredictable. Investigate and invest. Capture the spirit of a spy. Ms. McWright said earlier this year that she finds students and faculty often share what they need or needed to hear when they give a chapel talk. So, to conclude, this is what I needed and sometimes still need to hear. 1, freshman year, whatever your freshman year may be, sucks, but it gets better if you let it. 2, being alone at times does not mean you are lonely. Alone time is good and, in my opinion, crucial. 3, go for a walk. It could change everything. And 4, on that walk, take a new path every day. Try a new route. Whether you're a spy evading your enemies or just someone trying to get through the day, you never know what good may come from the path not taken. Thank you.